a value would pass from an account to another account. And for that to happen, we'd both have to have bank accounts. As the seller, I would have to have some kind of infrastructure for accepting or reading the card. There would have to be telephone networks. There would have to be a great number of different elements in place. And although it's very convenient and swift at the end where we do that little exchange, so many things needed to be in place beforehand. And we spoke before about how feasible that is to think of our whole society running that way.
It sounds very expensive.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
Doesn't it? There is cost, and that's one of the first things that people need to consider when we talk about how are we moving society, in what direction. Cost is not to be left out of the equation. The banks who operate the movement of monies will tell you that they believe this is a high cost, because there is counting, there is printing, there is controlling, and many people would also say that because this has a physical form, that risk lies in using something which could potentially be counterfeited. Mm-hmm. There's so many different ways that people describe currency as being the source of risk, but it's not true that it is the only expense in the equation. There's the expense of your whole network, there's the development, there's the constant defense of your whole system of these cashless transactions.
You just mentioned the whole defense, and as you were speaking, it just brought up instances in my mind about recently TNT has faced a number of cyber attacks. Mm-hmm. And when you speak about a more digitalized society or digital inclusion for everyone, the first thing that comes up is ensuring that your existing IT infrastructure or your cybersecurity infrastructure is always up to date or is always at its 100% best in order to ensure that it really, gives the value that we are hoping it does. We haven't experienced that in recent times.
Not only have we not experienced 100% perfection, two things I think are important to point out. No country experiences 100% perfection and always being fully up to date. And secondly, I'm not sure that we can ever expect what you call perfection. I think that is always a statement of vision and never a statement of current reality. If that were not so, then we as consumers wouldn't continue to see changes every couple of years, in some cases every couple of months, in how we experience that network. We see changes in cards. We see changes in the machines used to dispense cash. We see changes in the processes at the banks. We see changes if we are using online banking. We see changes if we are using online sales. Why is there constant change? Because there is always a new threat to this perfect vision of safety, this perfect vision of confidentiality. The breaches which reach the public's attention are only a small fraction of the breaches which can occur and do occur every day.
So then, the arguments that you've put forward suggest to me that when you analyze both sides, the pros and cons of a cashless society, it's still very much risky business.
I believe that there is risk in both of the options we just discussed. I mean, we've discussed before, and certainly the proponents of cashless societies emphasize the risk in the physical currency. And I think we're all aware of the risk of petty theft, we're aware of the risk of counterfeiting, etc. I believe that if we focus on stating that a perfect system is one without risk, and if we position the discussion as though this was all based about controlling risk, then we're not really moving forward into discussing the impacts on people. And I also believe that might be a little unrealistic, given that in no situation and in no system can you always remove all of the risk. So what if we move the argument back a step and said this is, before we talk about perfecting the risk profile of a cash transaction or perfecting the risk profile of a non-cash transaction, why not accept there is risk both ways? Where does that bring us back to? I believe then that you have some more room to include other factors like the impact on consumers.
What would that impact on consumers look like?
Well, let's start with where are we today. Right now, I was able to demonstrate an option, which is a cash transaction, and we were discussing this in the context of an alternative, a cashless transaction. Where we are today is that I had this option. I could have chosen to make a cash transaction or chosen card. If I enjoyed the convenience and I have the account and I have the value in an account, options remain open to me. There is, however, a risk whenever you begin to take away options from a consumer. I think this is one of the elements that the Prime Minister of St. Lucia found alarming. And he was speaking from the point of view of one particular element of the society, the elderly. He was saying he's concerned. How about elderly people who are not comfortable with the non-cash transaction? I think he's very right to point out that there are non-trivial human elements in taking away options and in forcing people to use a method which they might not be comfortable with yet. However, I think it goes even further. I think he was being cautious and he stepped in with a very convincing example, but it's truly not limited, in my point of view, to only the difficulty of the elderly. I'm sure you could imagine other situations where attempting to take cash out of every transaction becomes less convenient and is not the easiest or the most accessible to many other segments of society.
Now, this is the comments, the statements on the part of Prime Minister Philip Shipp here were it was astounding in the sense that he's also the Minister of Finance. Usually Ministers of Finance are very cautious in their approach or what they state because of its impact or effect that not only could it have on the population but also the banking and financial sector. That being said, he seemed very, to me, it seemed quite apprehensive in the approach of a cashless society. Again, coming from a Minister of Finance and all the pros that we've heard associated with a cashless society. I mean, you've pointed out both sides this morning, but he's taken quite a remarkable stance.
Yeah, it's remarkable and I think commendable. Let me start by saying the Prime Minister of St. Lucia prefaced his own statement by saying, I must exercise caution, and I'm conscious that the statements of a Minister of Finance potentially have impacts and effects in how people perceive a financial system. So he's absolutely right to be expressing the caution, but I believe he's also absolutely founded in the right to advocate for the rights of all of the people of his constituency. So let's remember, as a Minister of Finance, he's also an elected person, and his constituency and who he represents cannot be limited to the commercial banks. It cannot be limited to the business aspect of the society. He must be also speaking from the point of view of people. So for that reason, I have nothing but praise for the Prime Minister of St. Lucia for expressing the concern. He's showing a compassion and opening a conversation which I believe has a lot of material to be explored on the way to determining as a representative and then as a society with their representatives, how should our day-to-day interactions with money, with each other, with merchants and with the government, how should those transactions look? So I think he's on solid ground.
Some of the issues that small and developing states in the Caribbean would face, if you take the examples of St. Lucia, Grenada, even Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, we wouldn't have the same issues, but a lot of what we experience may be similar. For example, the point of the elderly, the point of the infrastructure as it relates to IT, even the access to such infrastructure. So, whilst I do understand that, does it not also speak to how far behind we are as a people, as a nation, in terms of being, well, tech-savvy?
One could certainly take the approach that your readiness for being a cashless society is a measure of your savviness or your acceptance or the ubiquity of tech in your life. But what I suggest is really the question is not that. Are we really as a society going to make that the center of a discussion about us? Or do we view the technology as a tool for society? If you take that last approach, that the technology is a tool, then the core of your discussion about society is not, do we have the best tools, but rather, are the tools serving us in the way that we want to be served? Is it giving us convenience? Well, yes, the tech does give convenience in some situations, not in every situation. Another question might be, is the one tool, is the same tool right for all parts of society? I would suggest that the elderly are frequently pushed forward as a complaint. Oh, no, you can't do this because of the elderly. And I think that there's some small merit in that, but it is very much, it's not limited. It goes far beyond that. Take, for example, people who have vision problems not due to age. You can have a vision problem from birth. And in that situation, it is far more, at a human level, at an interface level, far more practical for a person to hold something physical that they can count. They can know after a transaction what remains. They can know if they receive change. That's another seriously, underserved situation, thinking about those who have disabilities. And there are a great many more disabilities than we might be aware of in mobility, in getting to a bank, in moving around and understanding what transactions you're about to enter into. There's a physicality with currency which meets the needs of those who cannot always conduct a seamless transaction where it's invisible.
So as I said in my introduction, one of the biggest I suppose, push or arguments that anyone who's advocating for a cashless society has made is that it will lead to more financial inclusion. But it seems as though, based off of your explanation this morning, that we have not fully or truly explained or educated to the public both sides of this argument. I get the impression that it is doing the opposite of inclusion.
I believe that you share a point of view there with the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, and I think that is the point that he was driving towards by targeting the cashless transactions and by saying, what about this segment, this example segment of the elderly? Ultimately, what do you mean by inclusion? Inclusion technically is meant to mean that everyone has an opportunity to take part. I would submit, and I think the Prime Minister of St. Lucia will also reach this point of making the statement, that inclusion has to include an element of choice. Can you say that a system is more inclusive if you're in fact removing choices from some groups and how they currently live their lives? If you're removing options and removing choices for people, is that more inclusive?
Mm-hmm. What about the banking sectors abroad? I mean, if I were to compare now and bear in mind, these countries may be far more advanced as compared to us. And I'm not being negative in any way. I'm just saying, this is where we are as compared to this is where they are. But all throughout the world, throughout the United States, throughout the United Kingdom, parts of Europe, it's quite amazing what you see now, where when you get to the cash register,
again,
people are pulling out their phones.
You said they're advanced compared to us. But what do you mean technologically advanced?
But I'm not only speaking about technologically advanced. I'm just seeing many a times our arguments, or ministers of finance make the arguments that this is international standard, this is international best practice. So then, if that be the case, in this particular argument of a cashless society, how do we compare ourselves to international standards that currently is in place?
I would submit that this argument about cashless society is driven along to quite a large degree by that I have to say it's an old and worn-out argument, an old and worn-out point of view, which states because there is a trend internationally or because there is a statement coming out of countries said to be more developed, that necessarily it's a good thing. The Prime Minister is pushing against a strong current, and he knows it, and that's why he was very cautious in the beginning. He knows that there's a lot of drive which comes from international organizations, it comes from international commercial institutions, and let's as well take a moment just to separate authority from business. Another unspoken challenge that he faces and that all of our societies face is to segregate, to understand the difference between what is an authority, what is a law, and what is a system that you must obey compared to a system which happens to be very powerful but is not actually the law. The banking system remains a private commercial enterprise. So we can be saying that this business thrives in a particular way in another country. Does that make it the law for us in our society? Again, societies should have choice. And I believe that Mr. Pierre's statement points to the risk of this force of going along with whatever is presumed to be advanced, whatever is presumed to be a new norm in another place, necessarily means that we must go that way and remove our own choices.
So then let me also speak to a practical example, and that is, for example, proof of income. Now, with cash, for example, one might make the argument that proof of income, it's easy to launder cash. But if we speak about small-scale transactions, for example, like the taxi men who earn their living, if you go to a bank, for example, to try and conduct a transaction, such as even buying or selling foreign exchange, in some instances they will ask you for proof of income. How does that happen with a cashless society, where my phone is essentially my bank or my wallet? Where does proof of income even come into play here? Because I'm speaking about the biggest argument about it's going to help with security.
And again, I think this is another one of these arguments that needs unpacking a little bit further. We have started many of these discussions in the international spaces and in the spaces where authorities come to the public to make a general statement like this is better for you, without spelling out an assumption. What is the assumption that would make it true to say that because a transaction happened electronically from one account to another account without the use of physical currency, what is the assumption which makes that transaction safer? The assumption which they're not speaking about, and I believe people would benefit from exploring further, is the assumption that no wrong can be done in an electronic space, or that because it happened between two banks, the bank assumes the previous bank, the bank that sent the money in one direction, exercised some kind of filtering or some kind of check or some kind of proof, which means the receiving bank at the receiving end of a transaction somehow has less to fear. So my question to you is, speaking, if you were to be devil's advocate and say, okay, this makes it all safer, do you agree with that assumption which is falling behind all of these statements? Do you agree?
I don't agree with any assumption.
Well, that's a very healthy position to take. And I think that we all would benefit from having a little bit more skepticism. What are these assumptions that are making us believe or accept? We accept really more than we explore and believe. In the case of cashless society, again, because there's IT hanging over the whole mix, there's frequently a reluctance to question what messages come.
Camille, let me ask you, why is there this position, or there seems to be this position, about we are taking the stance, and I'm not speaking about on this program this morning, I'm speaking about, you referenced Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley a couple months ago taking a position of we must go cashless. We're now hearing from the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, who's also the Minister of Finance, saying, hold up, pause on that, even saying that I'm willing to go to CARICOM to try and deal with this issue. That being said, one thing that seems to be clear all around, there's a lack of education or a lack of willingness to educate the public fully. A complete pros and cons and a debate, a healthy debate about this. Why?
I would submit that anyone who is putting forward an argument that they wish to see succeed is not going to make it their job. They're not going to make it their duty to make the public explore both sides. They are going to take on the challenge of making the public aware of the arguments that they agree with. And this is something the public also needs to be aware of. Again, as I said, when we talk about banking, when we talk about commercial transactions, let us not confuse ourselves that we're talking about the law. We are talking about banking systems, and then we are also talking about, side by side with a banking system, are laws which are governing that. So there is too frequently, I believe, a rush to assume that because a bank told you this is the way it has to be, that somehow we must all go along with that without questioning. I believe that healthy questioning still needs to occur. What you're doing right now by opening a discussion, we're having a debate which is perhaps a bit lacking in the space of banks educating the public. The banks, I do not believe, will realistically take on a job of making the public aware of the whole range of options. Banks are a commerce, they are a trade, they're a business. They are going to promote, they're going to advertise, they're going to encourage any product and any system which benefits the banks first.
You're not necessarily against cashless transactions. What you
Not at all,
against,
not at all.
What you are against is a cashless society. In other words, have all options available for consumers.
I think it would be going a step too far to say that I'm against a cashless society, and that's not a statement of my position. That's a statement from me that we've not defined what we mean. We have yet to hear exactly what is meant by taking the term cashless, which we understand, that's simple, a transaction minus paper. We're talking about card transactions. What do we mean by a cashless society? Do we mean a society which is dead set against having any other form of trade? What if I exchanged goods for goods? What if I said to you, I have some grapefruits, you have some oranges, we make an exchange, there was value in the exchange, but no currency was involved. I think that there's many different ways that people have to get by in society, and that we need to be more careful about considering the society part of that term. Society, social good, social welfare, people's needs, people's rights, before we start mingling the word society with cashless. So to be clear again, a cashless transaction has many excellent advantages. How could I be working in information technology and not be very much in favor of the benefits of speed, the benefits of auditability, the benefits of not having to do the physical counting to slow down a transaction taking place? Absolutely, there are benefits. But when I say that I agree with the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, it's because I have to recognize, and I hope that more members of the information technology community, the banking community, the finance community, and the political community would recognize that benefits in one context do not mean benefits in all contexts. They don't mean benefits for all users. Everyone has different needs. Options, I believe, need to be back on the table.
Camille, as we come to the conclusion of this conversation, and again, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
It's been my pleasure.
In the sense of CARICOM, because I'm not just speaking about Trinidad and Tobago alone, I'm not speaking about just St. Lucia alone. CARICOM, we as a Caribbean people, what would you advise, what is your opinion as per the next steps that we need to be having? Not in terms of the decision-making itself, but even the conversation. What, in your opinion, is the very best next move for us to make?
I think what the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philip Pierre, has announced is a very healthy next step. He has not said, I'm going to CARICOM to demand a stop to something. He's not said, I'm taking forward a policy to fight an existing position. He has said we need to have a conversation. And as I said a bit earlier, a conversation needs to include the different sides of the assumptions. Let us use that conversation. I strongly encourage him to have a debate, a dialogue, and I hope that that dialogue amongst the political directorates within the Caribbean will be open to considering disassembling some of these assumptions. Let's have a genuine debate about the genuine mix of Caribbean people's needs, the genuine mix of abilities, of opportunities, of costs, so that we can have a dialogue or a debate which leads to something which is truly reflective of what society could benefit from, rather than the assumption that society needs to be driven by the technologies and the tools which are available to us.
Indeed. Camille Pagey, I thank you once more for coming on AM Prime and leading this discussion, and I always welcome you back.
Thanks
as
so
you
much.
do your part in educating all our viewers. Thank you so very much. Camille
Have a
Pagey,
great day.
Managing Director of Connect Consulting Limited, joining us on AM Prime this morning. As mentioned, I do not think that we have had really the level of analysis or education that is necessary when we speak about a cashless society. But as Camille pointed out, it's a bit difficult because banks are private institutions, and at the same time, the public has every right to have all options available to them. Consumers have every right to have options available to them. But let's see where this heads and whether or not the Prime Minister of St. Lucia will indeed raise this as a point of issue within CARICOM. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. We will return shortly with some more updates for you. We'll be right back.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
And it's, nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
They believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No.
Let's go to the last part.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the corresponding banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning. As we continue our program this morning, we are speaking to the Police Service Social and Welfare Association, who have issued their support for the Commissioner of Police, Earl Edward Christopher, congratulating her on her one-year contract extension. I'm joined now by the President of the Association, Acting Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent Gideon Dixon. He joins us virtually. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for having me at this time.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. As I mentioned, the union, yourself on behalf of the union, has pledged support to the Commissioner of Police, congratulating her on her one-year contract extension. But a media house called you upon confirmation that her contract was extended, and you responded that you were watching and observing like everyone else. There seems to be a bit of confusion or clarity in respect to the position of the association. Does your position actually differ from that of the association?
Whenever I speak on behalf of the association. I don't speak on behalf of myself. What persons need is that the work of the Commissioner of Police isn't a job that is like what we would go every 5 years before election campaign to put the person we believe could do the job in place. Most times, and the record would show for the greater time that the organization has been in existence, the person who elevates the upper echelons of the organization are in fact career officers, and us, the sworn officers, have given an oath to protect and serve regardless of who the Commissioner of Police is. So this isn't an issue as to whether I, Gideon Rayon Dixon, likes, dislikes, or believe. Is an issue where we have someone who's sitting at the helm of the organization, and the law-abiding, the police officers who are sworn to protect and serve will support the efforts of the Commissioner of Police to achieve our strategic goals and targets.
Do you think it has been made clear by the Commissioner of Police in communicating with the public? Are you satisfied that she has stated the TTPS's position in terms of the strategic objectives and the goals in respect to dealing with the crime situation in TNT? She gave figures when she entered the office. In fact, she gave quite astounding figures, remarkable, considering her position and her job. That being said, she has failed to achieve such. So are you satisfied with her efforts in achieving such strategic objectives?
Right. So the figures that were given just over a year ago, we all have come to understand that they were inflated and enthusiastic, to say the least. And the record would show that the association at the point in time when the figures were given, we have indicated it is an ambitious strategic objective. We will try our best to assist how we can. What we the association felt that the numbers, the targets were very difficult to achieve. So that record maintains. But one must consider that the job of the Commissioner of Police is one where it is the most challenging in Trinidad and Tobago presently in our nation's history. And with that being said, it means to give a person the most difficult job and expect to see results within 1 year. Tell me how fair is that really and truly? Additionally, the organization is often judged on its ability to impact upon murders, also to rid the streets of firearms. You would use data to suggest that this year was better than last year or last year was better than this year based on the set CAPA data that we have. So I can tell you that a year ago to date, we had 223 murders to date. Today we have 205 to date. The data is what the general public would use to measure the performance of the police. And I'm saying that we need to be consistent for most part, as opposed to being convenient, right? So against that backdrop, 1 year in office is not a sufficient period to judge office holders, especially when they are not responsible. They cannot do every single thing. We all have a part to play too in trying to achieve all the goals set out on paper.
Without disregard for the fact that it is perhaps the most challenging position in TNT and the difficulties associated with the job will always remain, and bear in mind, anyone going into this position will have an idea of what is to be expected of them, and public criticism of former commissioners, they would have some sort of idea. But I hear your points. We should not be convenient. So if we were to put aside the murder rate, for example, just for a moment, and just take a look at other factors, for example, recently we've had a number of meetings between the TTPS and community. So we can say community cottage meetings on the part of the TTPS. And generally speaking, on the part of the community, they have had very, very disheartening and disappointing reviews of the service received by the TTPS. Also, if you take a look at the number of shootings where you have people in really like half a dozen people in one shooting being targeted on weekends, we've grown so accustomed to that happening. The criminal elements always seem to have an upper hand. I'm not saying that the Commissioner of Police is directly involved or is directly responsible for resolving all of these issues. But surely, Assistant Superintendent, the Commissioner of Police has not lived up to the expectations even when it comes to communicating with the public. I mean, she has said at least twice the need for divine intervention. So at this point, my question to you is whether or not you believe that Earl Edward Christopher represents the best of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and represents the best of what they have to offer in terms of leadership.
Right. So, in quick and direct response to that statement or that long-winded question you asked, is simply this. We could all appreciate that there is a gap between the public trust and confidence of the police and the engagements on a both day-to-day basis and what we would want to see materialize. We can all accept that. Saying we accept it doesn't mean that we will fully endorse it. And it is for that reason I'm aware that efforts are being made to improve the customer service. And this isn't just with Ms. Ura Christopher at the helm of the organization. This is successive commissioners of police because, again, public trust and confidence in the role and function of the police has been one that continues to weigh and weigh heavy. Now, having said that, everyone has different leadership styles. You likewise would have yours, Ms. Erda Christopher would have hers, former commissioners would have theirs. I myself would have my own leadership style. And it is for persons to understand that the leader, his or her role isn't to do every single thing. It is for the leader to influence others to go beyond their own capacity to achieve the goals set out. Now, this is not a movie. This is not a sitcom. You cannot expect that when you look at all our institutions in Trinidad and Tobago, which have decayed and diluted considerably, that the fingers pointing at one entity to protect and serve will be able to address it within the short window given for them to address it. So, whilst you point your fingers at the police or at the leadership of the police, the guns continue to come in the country which are not manufactured here. Whilst you point your finger at the police and the fact that we are trying to do better on a daily basis, our criminal justice system through the courts are churning back out criminals on a daily basis. Our prisons are not rehabilitating or restoring the justice to the persons. When you look at what customs are also doing and what immigration and the Coast Guard, no one is calling on those persons to come out and account for their stewardship. So we have to be careful in terms of what we really want. Is it that we want a scapegoat? Is it that we believe that convenience is the way to go? Let's blame someone for our shortcoming. The truth be told, we all have a part to play in it. And the police, over time, not just under Ms. Christopher's tenureship, but over other commissioners' tenureship, we have embarked and moved away from traditional policing where we have embarked upon our community. I get a glimpse of your face there, right? We have embarked upon several community outreach programs. We have invested considerably in our police youth clubs. We have embarked upon community policing approach. We have moved away from traditional policing lens, and we are now being driven by what you would call intelligence-led policing. So strategies will be different from commissioners to commissioners, but the results will not come overnight because the decay didn't take place overnight.
I understand that the results will not come overnight, and I think that it will be unfair for anyone to expect an overnight change. But given all the factors that you have pointed out, issues associated with the criminal justice system, with the number of guns flowing into Trinidad and Tobago, I understand that, I recognize that. We're not putting that aside from the challenges that TNT is facing. However, in your response, I'm curious to know over the next year what it is that you hope to see, or what it is you expect, what it is that you can tell citizens that this is what we hope to achieve, this is what we hope to see over the next year, if it is that policing in Trinidad and Tobago has changed or is evolving to meet the evolving criminal element.
Right. So, I am not the Commissioner of Police. And the question that you just asked is best poised at the Commissioner of Police and by extension, our executive. I could say from an association
I understand that, sir, but you've pointed out the challenges.
I would prefer I could answer the question, please, sir.
Go on.
Right. From an association perspective, I would want to say that I would want more training to be afforded to my officers. I would want to see that our working conditions are improved. I would also want to see that our officers pay particular attention to their health and well-being, and the service provide a level of support for that, because a healthy officer will be able to give more to the man and the woman out in the street. I would want to see that officers are able to use their ability to communicate and be members of community and embrace our role and curb crime in a meaningful way. I would want to see those things, but I would also want to see a level of partnership second to none, because we cannot do it by ourselves. Regardless of how you look at it, how you flip the lens and point the fingers, this job, it is a challenging job, and without resources and without the necessary support, you will find yourself always playing catch up.
Indeed, indeed. So, well, that's all the time that we have for the conversation this morning. I apologize, I wish we had more time, but thank you very much for your presence. I would assume that you would also be very busy given the news in respect to the extension of Ole Christopher's contract and the support on the part of the association. But thank you very much for your time this morning, and I look forward to our next conversation.
No problem. Thanks much.
All the very best. Now, whether you disagree with what the Assistant Superintendent just explained to us, you have to bear in mind that he makes a very good point in the sense that we all have a role to play. And I agree that one cannot expect changes to happen overnight. You can't expect the results to come overnight. It's not a blame game or a matter of a blame game or pointing fingers towards the TTPS. Once the TTPS recognizes that they have to improve all around, including in their communication style with the public, including the service that they deliver. Because it's easy to give a defense of the TTPS, it's easy to criticize the TTPS, but generally speaking, what is your experience with the TTPS? Are you satisfied? Are you even content? I'd go as far as to ask. The thing is, I support Ole Airwood Christopher, and I'll tell you why. If Ole Airwood Christopher succeeds in achieving her goals, then we as a nation succeed. We all do better. However, that being said, those goals are not entirely clear-cut. A crime plan or strategic crime plan is not entirely clear-cut. In fact, I'd even argue that there is no sense of direction as to where we're heading. We just only await to hear of more bad news every day. And to a great extent, we're probably becoming immune to that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program, and when we return, it's Wednesday. So we'll have Ricardo Mead and the El Socorro Center for Wildlife Conservation joining us for Wild Wednesdays. We'll be right back.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Suspect detained following shooting death of police constable. BTSC clarifies El Damo service. Regionally, Vibes cartel attorney files application for his immediate release. Now for the details. One man is in police custody following a shooting incident in the Central Division last night, which claimed the life of number 15754 PC Dale Mayers, who was last attached to the Northern Division. Reports indicate that the victim was in the company of two other persons at a Shogunas business place around 10:15 p.m. on Monday, when they were approached by a male suspect armed with a gun who announced a robbery. It is alleged that PC Mayers drew his CTPS-issued firearm and fired several shots in the direction of the suspect, who returned fire, hitting the officer. The suspect then ran out of the establishment. PC Mayers was taken to the Shogunas Health facility, where he succumbed to his injuries while undergoing treatment. Shortly after, officers attached to the Besson Street Criminal Investigations Department, acting on information, proceeded to the Port of Spain General Hospital, where they met with hospital staff who reported that around 11 p.m., a 23-year-old man was brought into the facility nursing gunshot wounds. The suspect, who fitted the general appearance and physical description of the assailant involved in the shooting incident, was detained. Investigations ongoing into the matter. Commissioner of Police Earl Harewood Christopher and the executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service have extended heartfelt condolences to the family, friends and colleagues of PC Mayers in the aftermath of his tragic passing. The Public Transport Service Corporation has sought to clarify the situation following news of the availability of just 6 buses and 1 driver to operate the elderly and differently abled mobile service. In a statement, the PTSC set out to accurately represent the scale of the El Damo service, which was introduced over a decade ago to provide free transportation to those elderly and with disabilities. The corporation said several buses have been identified to undergo extensive repairs to allow for annual inspection and ensure their roadworthiness. In regional news, attorneys representing Adisha Power, also called Vibes Cartel, have filed an application for the immediate release of their client along with 2 of his co-accused as they await a hearing on whether they will be retried for murder next month. The Court of Appeal will hear arguments on June 10th whether Cartel and his co-accused Sean Campbell, Andrew St. John and Kira Jones should be retried for the 2011 murder of Clyde Lizard Williams. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thank you for watching.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'd ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have 2. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
Let's go to the last part.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh, available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
It's Wild Wednesday. Please join me as I welcome Ricardo Meade to the platform. Hello.
Good morning.
Sorry, I said please join me, knowing that there's no round of applause for the live audience. Yeah.
Oh, we can fake it.
We can fake it. How are you doing?
Great, absolutely wonderful, thrilled, joyful. It's just it's a wonderful day.
You're in a good mood.
Wonderful way. Oh yeah, definitely. I am in a great mood. Good doesn't really describe it.
Excellent. Care to share some of that great mood with us?
Well, the countdown is really on. We're hours, a day and some hours away from wheels up, as we like to call it. We'll be getting on a plane and we'll be heading to Panama. That'll be 11 of us from the Wildlife Center heading to Panama. But no, we're not going to Panama to shop and to bring back the world to Trinidad. In fact, we are actually backpacking. That means there's no checked luggage, it's just your backpack. So we're on a trip for a week. All that you need must fit within that backpack, 22 pounds, no more. It's a little part of being a little efficient.
Yes, efficient.
Yeah, because put it this way, as environmentalists, it's bad enough we have to use a plane, we're using a plane, but we don't need to take more than we really need. Okay, that's part of the understanding of how we should try to operate going forward. You don't need more than that. So we're going to take what we need and do what we go for, which is to learn, educate, build our capacity, and come on back and teach the younger volunteers and other people who want to join the establishment about what we have learned. And we intend to learn a lot, because from Panama is just 8 hours, we head over to Belize. So while in Belize, we have Wild Tracks, we have the Belize Raptor Center, we have the Belize Zoo, so many places there in Belize to learn from.
Raptor Center.
Yes, Raptor Center, Birds of Prey, they do some amazing work. We'll be learning to use their X-ray machine, so we're going to come back and hopefully get our own X-ray machine so we can do our radiographs in-house. So less stress on the animals. Instead of getting the animals in, taking them to a veterinary hospital, we will have it right there available in our wildlife hospital. So that will improve time, quality of service delivered to these animals, and hopefully increase even further our release rates. So it all comes down to the animals. Then we go across to Guatemala.
You go in Central America coming down.
Yeah, we go to Guatemala. They have one of the best wildlife sanctuaries in the world. We have to experience that because we're also moving locations. And when we set up some of the protocols and things that we see there, we hope to employ here to raise our standard to that international standard. And then on the last night, really, we dock into Mexico. And Mexico is more for chill out, but there are some wildlife places around that we intend to get in, but no pressure on anyone. It's just after a week of just going, and a little sleep, just a little chill, a little tequila.
Well, wildlife, yeah, wildlife.
Right, yeah, get wildlife, you know.
After 2 shots of tequila, wildlife.
Yeah, the nightlife represents a lot of wildlife. So, and then right back over to Belize and back to Trinidad, back to reality, as they say.
And backpacking 22 pounds. Okay, so 7 pairs of underwear, change of clothes, and a toothbrush.
Pretty much, you know. You have your underwear, your socks, your boots that you're wearing, what's on your clothes, what's on your body is one set, and it's minimal.
You're just good to go.
It's just what you need. You don't need anything more, you know. You don't need to have your hair dry and do all your hair and stuff like that there. A ponytail. Well, I intend to do my hair as minimal as possible, so I will be cutting mine. You know how I comb my hair, right? Have you seen me comb my hair?
No, I haven't.
Really, it's just a matter of doing that. And I'm ready for them. I'm ready for them. So I'm already, I don't just talk it. I'm living a life that just takes a little less resources out of this planet, so we can leave something for the future generation.
Now, you've brought a guest with you. I'm thrilled for you guys, by the way, and enjoy it, make the most of it. But we've got a VIP guest with us this morning.
Yes, a very iconic animal. If you had asked people, which animal represents Trinidad and Tobago?
Which animal represents Trinidad and Tobago? Papaboa.
You know that's my nickname, right?
They call you Papaboa?
Yeah.
Okay, well then,
not
Papaboa.
Papa Bear.
People might probably say, honestly, Scarlet Ibis. That's the first thing that's going to come to mind because it's the
Well, that only represents Trinidad. But the hummingbird represents Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see the Scarlet Ibis everywhere, but you see the hummingbird everywhere. Let's start off with Caribbean Airlines.
Yes, yeah.
Their tail fin is the hummingbird. The police service, in the middle of their star is the hummingbird. TT Post.
It's the hummingbird.
Or 5-cent piece. Or is it all 1-cent piece? A $20 bill. So it's so many, it's everywhere.
Are we doing this currency game again?
No, we're not going to do currency game, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
Right? It's everywhere because Trinidad and Tobago was known as the
land of the hummingbird.
Right. And our original name, right? I ask this a lot and people are very confused. That's why we have to keep pushing and pushing education. I ask people our original name and people are like Trinity and so on. I think that is when Columbus came here. Okay, and he didn't see any Trinity Hills. Okay, he told Ferdinand and Isabella, the next land that I discover in the New World will be named for the Holy Trinity. So if he landed in Tobago, Tobago would have been called Trinidad.
Not Magdalena.
Okay, so people need to understand that. But before Columbus discovered or arrived here, and, word has it that he actually never put foot on Trinidad, but, his people, the Spaniards, came here. We had a name. They never used to say, people lived here, and they never used to say, over there, we're going over. So it had a name for
As
that
we do
place,
now.
right? Yeah, there's a name. In fact, there were two names. One is Airi, like Airi village down in Princestown, and the other is Yuret.
Not Irie. Not Irie.
Yeah. Airi is the real name. Airi and Yuret. So that's what's our name. So when the kids in Venezuela said, Mom, I'm going into the dugout this weekend. Where are you going? Well, we're going across the Yuret and we're just going to hang out there. There's a nice beach down there. That's what it was like. So the truth is the Vennies were here for a very, very long time. This was their backyard. This was their playground. This was their down the island. Think of it that way.
Well, they said they suggest that TNT broke off from South America.
Yeah. The geography and the geology proves that. There's no doubt about that. And that's why we are very different from any other Caribbean island, including Tobago. Tobago is volcanic and coral, and we are literally break off from those mountains and hills and carried on. That's why our ecosystem is so diverse and resembles more South America than the Caribbean islands.
So what's the name of I think you could bring VIP guest on set now.
Our guest today is our iconic animal in Trinidad, our iconic bird. It is the hummingbird.
Can we get a zoom in on that so people can see? The first thing is, I've always found it fascinating how they fly and flutter so quickly.
These birds exist, but science almost says that they shouldn't even exist.
I'm actually hoping that the viewers can see the bird properly. But anyway, as you were saying, Ricardo.
Yeah, science says that they shouldn't exist. How fast does a human heart beat?
68 times a minute.
68, 72, 100 and something if you're, galloping full speed. These guys, 1,200.
1,200?
So their heart beats 1,000 times faster than ours.
And I guessed 120.
1,000 times faster than ours. They're just amazing animals. So they need a lot of energy. Hence the reason they visit the flowers to achieve their nectar, which is high energy. If you drank a cup of nectar, you would probably fly around this room. You would probably grow wings yourself. That's a lot. So for their tiny bodies, that nectar which they derive from each flower, it's like serious energy drink.
You said something that science suggests that they shouldn't exist. Why is that? Because of the heart rate, because of the amount of energy that they consume?
Yes. So their quest throughout the day is basically staying alive. They have no time to really rest and chill. Very short space of time. If they go for an extended period of time without caloric intake, eating or drinking that nectar, or even eating some of the insects, they could go into a coma and die.
So how many flowers do they have to visit on a daily basis?
Well, it depends on the type of flowers. Some flowers, like an immortelle, would have a lot more nectar than something as small as a vervine or a rostrata. So some flowers are tiny, some are larger, but they know what they need and they just keep going. And the amazing thing with these birds, they remember the flowers that they visited.
Really?
Yes. So they don't have a sense of smell. They can't smell. Most birds cannot smell. So they remember, they map out the flowers, and you see them just going and going and going. But this bird is just amazing.
What type, well, what species or subspecies of hummingbird?
The most common one, the copper-rumped hummingbird. Now, Trinis believe that there is one species of hummingbird, and they're all green. That's not true. We have what's considered one of the most beautiful hummingbirds in the entire world. So let's go back there. The Europeans were fascinated when they discovered the New World and they found for the first time hummingbirds. Because the only place in the entire world that hummingbirds exist is in the Western Hemisphere. There's none in the Old World, no hummingbirds. So there are about 350 different species of hummingbirds.
Oh, wow.
Of which we have 19 here in Trinidad.
19.
19. So there's a lot in South America and a tremendous amount in North America also. But why Trinidad also became known as the land of the hummingbirds is that people started capturing these animals and literally killing them to send them back to Europe. So they were pumped into barrels with salt, and then they would be shipped to Europe, England. And it would have on it, place of origin would be Trinidad and Tobago. So all the hummingbirds coming into Europe, no matter where they're from, came through Trinidad and went to Europe. So further given the name, land of the hummingbird.
Right, yeah.
Right? But we only have 19 different hummingbirds here. But they are amazing. And the most spectacular one is the ruby topaz.
I've got to go look that up, to be honest with you.
Well, put it this way. Most hummingbirds have the name of a precious or semi-precious stone for their name. The ruby topaz has two. Rubies
and topaz.
Yeah.
This guy looks like an emerald.
Yes, he has that emerald that gives
emerald, yeah.
That's the typical hummingbird color, but it will have the copper type color in his rump, his butt, so hence the name copper-rumped hummingbird. Now, this guy, the reason we have him in a cage, why do you have a hummingbird in a cage and you have the naysayers already?
Yep.
This guy shouldn't even be alive today, but he is. We got him up in St. Augustine, up in the hills up there, when somebody up there, what's that area up there?
Santa Margarita.
Santa Margarita, yes. Up there, we got a call a little more than a month ago for this hummingbird has a broken wing and just sort of going in circles on the ground. And I was like, oh gosh, we cannot fix a hummingbird's wing. It's too tiny. But we can give it an opportunity where it can fix itself. It can heal itself, bones fuse and so on. So we kept this hummingbird. We've kept it for more than a month now, and you see what it's doing.
Yeah.
It has gone from flopping and spinning on the ground. The first day that it got up on a perch, we were ecstatic. Then it got to the other perch. Now it's able to hover. So now, from tomorrow, it goes into a very large flight cage, and we're going to see if this bird can really perform functions to be able to release back into the wild. It's just amazing to know this bird went from being on the ground, flopping around, and we've kept it alive and well as an adult. So right now we have a baby in our care, and we just released one about a week and a half ago.
This is the adult?
This is the adult.
Okay.
This is the adult.
Now I'm curious to know.
Yes, they're tiny. They're tiny.
Wow.
Hummingbirds are tiny.
No, I know hummingbirds are tiny. I'm just like, this is the adult.
Yeah. They are tiny. So the one we got in, just imagine what they call that, a TikTok, the little
yeah, those little videos.
breath mints.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's about the size of an egg.
No, TikTok is different.
Right, yeah, you see what they got us now? Tic-tac. That's the size of their eggs.
Really?
They usually lay about 2, and they hatch from there. And so we got one probably a week after it hatched, And it has been in a week time. I looked at the bird when it came in, and I looked at it yesterday or day before yesterday, and I was shocked to know it was the same bird. The rate of growth, unless you're seeing it, it's just amazing when you go like week by week. So in the next couple of weeks, this bird is going to be flying, hovering, and ready to get the exposure and the training to go out into the wild.
No, I'm so glad that this guy or girl, were you able to tell?
I believe it's a guy. The colors are usually much more vibrant than the male. The females even sometimes look like another hummingbird. But yeah, we believe this is a young male.
Males are usually bigger or smaller?
A little bigger, I believe, in the hummingbirds. But in most birds, the males are bigger, but certain species like the raptors, the females are bigger, and so on and so forth. So hummingbirds it's just, their whole existence, like I said, it's just, when you read their heartbeats and their wing rate, it's just amazing.
Actually, tell us about the wing rate, because we spoke about the heartbeat, but the wing rate.
Again, also over 1,200. It varies. It can go up to, they believe, as much as 1,500 flaps. And they're the only birds that can fly forward, backward, up, down. They can, it's like an agile drone. Any direction of flight. So they can go into a flower, back out of it, through reverse, not falling backwards. And the funny thing about them, they cannot walk.
Really?
They cannot walk.
Yeah, because I've noticed it's not necessarily like crawling, just hopping, flying on the...
They don't have proper ankles, so they can't articulate that way. So they can hold on to the perch and flop and hold on, but they can't walk. And the other bird that likes that comes to mind, there may be others, but the other one that we have here in Trinidad that comes to mind like that is the oil bird. Because you've dealt with oil birds.
Yes,
they don't walk. They don't walk at all, They might give you a little crawl around, but they fly. Look at that, look at that. There you go. See? The agility.
Look at the colors.
Within, there you go. It's just amazing. When we saw this bird doing that, it was just, we almost overcome with joy. It was just amazing to know that we finally were able to provide the proper diet, environment, nutrients for the animal to be able to heal itself.
Ricardo, I'm curious to know, and I'm pretty sure I've asked you this on the program before, but it's the dry season. We're experiencing drought-like conditions. It's only going to get worse, and some people like to leave out water. Some people like to leave out fruits just for all the animals. A lot of people actually buy hummingbird feeders and they fill it with sugar and water.
Yes.
Is that something that is okay to do?
It's like your intentions are good, but without understanding the full concept, you can do a lot of harm. One, do not use brown sugar. Forget the concept of it's healthier and so on. It has too much iron, which will lead to problems with the liver of these tiny animals.
Yeah, very tiny animals. Yeah.
Then also, if you're buying a feeder, you should buy a tiny feeder and try to change it as often as possible, because that water will sour, it will turn, and it will end up giving the bird a bad infection where it cannot even open and close its beak properly, and it will die. So you love hummingbirds, you want them near your home, but by doing the wrong thing, you can kill them. You can harm them.
That's a painful, that's them suffering.
Yeah, it's a painful death to just see this hummingbird sitting there with its beak open, throat swollen, can't eat or drink. Yeah. It just suffers and dies.
So then what should people do? What's your best advice?
Put out for plants. Plants are a win-win all the way. So if you plant what we call hummingbird plants, a lot of lantana, it's a great one. Very cheap plant, probably $12. Lantana produces lots of flowers, has a pleasant scent, it looks beautiful, and it attracts hummingbirds. And there are quite a few other. The tubular type plants with flowers, rostrata and so on, produce. Even heliconias produce. I wouldn't tell you to go to Immortelle unless you have space. Immortelle. The Erythrina bidwilli, which is a vastly flowering Immortelle, beautiful red plumes, produces flowers year-round, and you will get them to come the natural way, the proper way. Plus, you will get a lot of other birds also. You will get shade. It will keep your area cool. It's just an amazing plant.
You don't necessarily advise purchasing hummingbird feeders?
No, I don't. I really don't advise unless you have gone through the process of knowing and understanding. But then imagine this, you did your hummingbird feeders there and you put them out on Thursday, and Friday you went down Mearo and you had a great weekend, a long weekend, and you come back up and you see the hummingbird dead because the nectar went sour, right? Because you had no one home to change it for you, you know. So the natural way is the best way. If you really know, there are people who know what they're doing and dedicated, they understand about even sanitizing them, even just changing them. You can't just change the nectar in them. You have to sterilize the bottles and the feeder part of it and stuff like that. So not many people are that OCD that they can do that all the time. So if you can't do that, just plant the flowers, beautiful flowers, enjoy the oxygen from it, and enjoy the beauty.
How is this extreme dry weather, drought-like conditions, how impacting upon these little guys? They're a lot smaller, their metabolism is a lot greater.
Well, they depend on flowers, and flowers are literally in bloom right now. So they've got, now with a little rain has helped some of the trees push out some more flowers. And, you know, from mango trees, you name it, everybody who's flowering, they will visit and try to get something from there if they can. Purely nectar. But they also eat insects,
Okay,
because
so
they can't live, they can't grow bones and tissue and so on without protein and fats and fatty acids. So they do consume a lot of insects. And we have some amazing people in Trinidad in terms of photography, and there've been quite a few captures of the hummingbirds just about to snap a little fruit fly out of the sky. So you'll have to put fruits out. When you put fruits out, sometimes you see a hummingbird passing by. It's not for the fruit.
It's for the flies.
It's for the flies.
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you put him in the fly cage more, because he's very active, very, very active.
He has mastered, he has earned his wings, as it were. He is just, you know, it's just a joy seeing him from literally, I'm telling you, just spinning on the ground, because with a broken wing, he cannot articulate that. So the one that can work, he's moving it, and it's causing him to just go in a circle all the time. And now, and I'm gonna take him back up to Santa Margarita. We have the papers. We're gonna find that lovely lady who called us. We're gonna take this bird back there to release it, because I know she's not gonna believe that it made it. You know, when she asked me if it's gonna make it, I said the wing is broken. We can't fix it, but we will try to give him the condition so he can fix himself.
So you can say this is, to an extent, a miracle.
Yeah, you use that word there. Yeah, yep. But it's part of it is there you go, feeding away.
What is he feeding on?
Well, there's nectar in there.
Nectar?
There's nectar in there. Yeah, we make nectar. I'm not going to reveal the formula, but we make nectar for him. So when he flies about, he needs his energy, he goes after it. He's able to recognize it.
And
again,
he is flying this morning, and so he's,
They're very visual, right? So that's why on the top of the container, that funny looking flower thing there, it sort of mimics the flowers that you would see outside. So
okay, I got you.
Yeah, so it targets him and homes him into the feeding hole. So he knows what he's doing. He knows his feeder very well. It's just really amazing. I'm really excited to present this animal this morning. A lot of people don't understand what we do in terms of rehab. This bird would have been left on the ground, and I've seen within an hour ants take over and absolutely decimate a hummingbird.
Still alive?
Huh?
Still alive?
While he was alive, they came in and they killed him and ate him. Wow. So all that was left was skeletal and feathers. They took everything else within an hour. So the lady saved this bird, and then we had it, and now he's ready to go back. And this is what it all comes down to, our trips to South America, to North America, wherever. It's about doing better to save the animals. And in doing so, we learn so much. These guys are also pollinators. They're very important animals for our existence. And the fact that they're beautiful just adds a whole other level of wow on it.
I'm thrilled, and I'm so proud, and you got a videotape tomorrow when you put him in the fly cage, because even this morning he's been so active. And
yeah.
What a treat. What really was a treat. Thank you very much, Ricardo. And, well, thank you for being a good guest.
Yeah.
Ricardo, to you and the team, all the very best. Enjoy the next week. I know it's non-stop. It's non-stop, but it really sounds like an adventure for a lifetime.
Yeah, and we hope to come back and be able to do so much. So part of the thing is that when I come back and I speak the language of conservation, the volunteers would understand better and can better dedicate themselves towards the cause, because they know what the cause is about.
And don't forget to pack an extra underwear. Very important.
Flipping on the other side is not an option? I was told that's one of the best ways to backpack.
Good luck to everyone who's camping with Ricardo. And don't forget to brush your hair.
Oh yeah, gotta look sharp.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime this morning. Always thrilled to have Ricardo Mead and any of the volunteers here on AM Prime. And thank you very much to our friendly guests. Really was an absolute treat. I'm Keaton Shaw, wishing you a great day ahead. And let's not end the show with me. Let's end the show with this beautiful, beautiful
couple ram Bird.
There you go. Can we get one more close-up before we bid farewell? We'll see you again very soon, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
WESN.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug.
You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
You'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
So there are a lot of eyes on Sumy region at the moment. And meanwhile, the Russians are inching forward every day a little bit more in Donetsk region. But I do say inching. They're not making any major gains there for the moment.
All right, Gulliver, thanks for that. That's France 24's Gulliver Craig reporting from Lviv. Here in France, the manhunt continues for a group of gunmen who freed a convict linked to gang drug killings. 2 prison officers were killed and 3 wounded in a brazen attack on a prison van that was stopped at a toll booth at the time. Now, France has since deployed almost 500 members of security forces as part of a major operation to catch the gang, all of whom remain at large. Here's more from French Justice Minister Éric Dupond-Moretti.
I want to say that everything will be done to find the perpetrators of this despicable crime. These are people for whom life means nothing. They will be arrested. They will be judged. They will be punished commensurate with the crime they have committed.
Several hundred prison guards, meanwhile, have gone on strike today for a so-called Dead Prison Day. They have turned out to protest what they call the dangers of their profession after the death of 2 of their colleagues in that attack. Guards at prisons from Marseille to Normandy have gone on strike. Well, for more now, let's bring in our Yinka Oyatadi, who's outside the Fleury-Mérogis prison, which is close to Paris. Yinka, what's the situation where you are?
Guards outside. There's a somber mood here, but also a charged up mood with many of the prison guards, as you say, decrying the dangerous elements, the dangerous part of their jobs here. We've spoken to some of the union heads here, and they say that almost 600 prison guards are on strike. And as you can see, they've set up barricades just behind me, and they aren't letting any of the families here who have come to visit their loved ones who are being held at this prison. They're not letting any of them inside. So it's a tense mood, but also, as I said, it's a charged up mood. They say they're determined to make their voice heard after that tragic attack yesterday.
Right, and Yinka, they're not just protesting that attack and the violence, but also just their own working conditions at the prison.
That's right. As you said, they are processing the dangerous element of their job, but also the poor working conditions here. We've spoken to some of the prison guards here, and they say that there is just a massive shortage of staff. At times, one prison guard can be dealing with almost 200 inmates just at a time, and you can imagine if anything goes wrong in those kind of situations, it's the prison guard is in a vulnerable situation. So, as you say, it's a dangerous job following what happened yesterday, but also a complicated one with things like the shortages of staff, but also overpopulation at prisons like this one. This is the largest prison in Europe. Almost 4,100 inmates are held here. And yes, as I've mentioned, it can be complicated at times with shortages of staff.
Yinka, thank you for that. Yinka Oyatadi there reporting for us from Fleury-Mérogis, a prison near Paris. Well, this comes as the country's Senate has delivered a scathing report on the local illegal drug trade. And as James Vicina explains now, it's recommending a number of changes to better fight the flourishing market.
A 6-month investigation, after which the Commission alerts that illegal drugs have flooded French society. Cannabis use is constantly on the rise, while cocaine is now soaring, and legal highs could be next. With an increasing number of different drugs available on the market, authorities are often unable to keep up with their flow via the many transit routes used by gangs in the country.
Not one department, be it customs, police, intelligence officers, or any other service, has confirmed that the means they have today are sufficient to keep up the fight against drugs.
A lack of staff and appropriate technology, as well as loopholes in the country's judicial system, mean that the drugs trade in France generates between 3 and 6 billion euros every year.
These weaknesses show that trafficking isn't taken into consideration as much as it should be. If we'd measured the risk properly, we'd have much better means in France today.
As a result, the Commission recommends that France creates an anti-drugs prosecutor's office, as well as a new agency based on the DEA, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration. It's also highlighted corruption in the country and called for better international cooperation. This in an effort to reach the drug lords, who most of the time seek refuge abroad, far from the trafficking that takes place in France.
A lighter note for you now, and the Cannes Film Festival is officially underway. Today we'll feature a Mad Max heroine played by Anya Taylor-Joy, a figurehead of the French Me Too movement, as Judith Godrèche. We're going to talk a lot more about that in just a few minutes, as well as a masterclass from Meryl Streep. Now, Streep was given an honorary Palme d'Or last night at the festival's opening ceremony. She is one of just many big stars who flocked to the Côte d'Azur for that event, which runs through May 25th. Monty Francis takes a look.
From the moment she stepped on the red carpet at Cannes, Meryl Streep was basking in adoration. Once the opening ceremony was underway, she received a long and thunderous standing ovation before receiving an honorary Palme d'Or. After a montage of some of Streep's most famous roles over the decades, French actress Juliette Binoche presented the award and was overcome with emotion.
You changed the way we look at women. In the cinema,